Pitchers and catchers have officially reported, and on today's show, I'm breaking down the 5 biggest questions the reigning champs have to answer during this spring training. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's episode, this show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the Rangers are here. Spring training is here. We have seen videos, heard the sounds of cracking of bats and the popping of mitts, baseballs being thrown into the catcher's gloves, and it's just that's such a glorious time. Football season is over, and it is finally baseball season. We don't have any games just yet, but just seeing those grainy videos from beat reporters and all kinds of different updates, I can't wait to hear about who's in the best shape of their life. I mean, I feel like we hear that every single year, and you know what? I never get tired of it because it means baseball is almost back, and it means the long, cold, dark winter is almost over. Granted, this was the shortest winter in Rangers history, not because of Puxatawny Phil, because the Rangers won the World Series. And so the offseason goes a little bit faster when you have an extra month of playing baseball and you win a championship at the end of that extra month of free baseball. But alas, we are here, spring training, and we have 5 big questions that the Rangers need to answer in spring training. And the number one question, of course, surrounds what some think to be the number one prospect in the Rangers system is Wyatt Langford ready? Is Wyatt Langford ready for the big leagues? And how ready is he for the big leagues? Now, there is a lot of speculation on how ready Wyatt Langford is for the big leagues. He might have been ready for the big leagues in September of last year, or maybe even August. I mean, the guy had the most incredible minor league debuts in a draft season that we have seen at least this century. It was absolutely bananas how good he was at every single minor league level of his debut. I mean, whether it was 3 games in the Arizona Complex League, whether it was 24 games at High A or 12 games at Double A, or even the 5 games he played in the regular season in Triple A and a couple in the playoffs. The guy was absolutely outstanding at every single level. All the concerns about him pre-draft and his swing decisions and how much he might chase out of the zone, and if he really was going to be as patient and show as much game power in game as he did at Florida, all those concerns were gone. And like I've said many times, if not for the little savior Evan Carter being right there ahead of him, he might have been that injury replacement for Adolis Garcia when he went down with that injury in early September, because that's how stinking good Wyatt Langford was. Now, there was some thought the Rangers might pursue a DH. They might pursue a DH in free agency like a JD Martinez or a Brandon Belt. While both those guys are still available, I think that ship has sailed. I think that I think that all the ships have sailed for any more free agent signings. Barring some last-minute injury to a starting pitcher, then maybe the Rangers might be willing to fork over some more money to bring back Jordan Montgomery. But I digress. This is about Wyatt Langford. And I think he's ready. I think the Rangers need to know how ready, though, and where he will play. Right now, I think he slots in as the Rangers' everyday DH. There will definitely be a competition between him and Justin Foscue and probably Ezekiel Duran. Maybe Josh Smith gets in the mix a little bit as well. But I'm pretty sure that Wyatt Langford is going to come out on top. And even though the Rangers aren't going to go sign a DH to a 1-year deal and kind of make Wyatt Langford absolutely prove himself to, steal that position away from whoever they sign, I think it's a little bit about financial, caution of not spending dollars on a DH when they think Langford might be just as good as someone they sign, or, good enough at pre-arbitration level salaries. But the good thing with Langford is that he doesn't have to do everything. It's kind of a similar situation as to Evan Carter. Granted, he's not going to be coming up in the middle of a stretch run postseason chase. He'll be coming up in the beginning of the season, hopefully, in a season where the Rangers definitely have postseason aspirations. But he's not going to be asked to do too much. He's not going to be batting third in the World Series like 30 games into his career. I'm pretty sure. Unless some things go very differently than I anticipate. But I'm pretty sure he's not going to be batting third in a playoff game that quickly into his career. He's going to be batting a little bit lower in the lineup, and it'll ease a little bit of the pressure off of him, and also deepen this lineup that is already incredibly talented. I mean, the nice thing about him is he slots in, and I remember a tweet that I sent out at opening day when Brad Miller was hitting eighth and DHing. I said, wow, if your DH is hitting eighth, then you probably don't have that good of a DH, and you probably need to get an upgrade there. And then, of course, Brad Miller proceeded to homer, and I was like, oh, well, maybe your DH can hit eighth if your lineup is just, basically the 27 Yankees. And for the first half of last year, this lineup pretty much was hitting like the 27 Yankees. It didn't quite, stay that level of insanity through the entire second half, but it's still an incredibly deep and talented lineup. And adding Langford's at-bats in there is going to be a nice way to improve this lineup that was already so good. He's going to be replacing a lot of at-bats from Mitch Garver. He's not going to be asked to be Mitch Garver. He's not going to catch. He's also, I don't know if he has the same, it's kind of probably pretty close of the insane light tower power both those guys have. And they both have pretty good swing decisions. But Langford doesn't have quite the level of major league experience as Mitch Garver did. But I think he's going to slot in really nicely to this lineup. I think he's going to be a huge addition. I think that they're definitely going to bat him kind of low in the lineup, maybe 7th or 8th or maybe even 9th. I think he'll probably slot in a little bit ahead of Leo Taris, but the Rangers need to know, is he ready for everyday at-bats, or is Justin Foscue going to beat him out of camp? There's an entirely real possibility that Foscue does. Foscue's got a whole lot more minor league plate appearances. He's got a lot more, reps under his belt. Langford was exceptional, absolutely exceptional at every single aspect that the Rangers were asking him to be exceptional at the plate last year. But it was still only 200 plate appearances combined in 2.5 months, which is solid. But there might still be some holes and some ways to improve that he hasn't quite figured out, that minor league pitchers haven't attacked him with just yet. It's possible that's not true, and he's just this amazing, and that's great. But we need to figure out how ready Wyatt Langford is during this spring training and how ready to play the outfield he is, because that's going to factor a lot into this lineup construction, who all's playing every single day, and honestly the long-term future of this team. Because if Evan Carter is acceptable to maybe even, I think, eventually decent defensive left fielder, I think he absolutely can be, because he's got the speed, the athleticism. He doesn't have that many reps in the outfield. It takes a little bit of time to get those reps down, to get that confidence down, and just get that consistency, because he spent a lot of his high school time as a catcher and a little bit of time as a first baseman as well. And so, learning those routes and getting that muscle memory and that, tracking the ball skill that it takes a while for some guys to get, it doesn't always come instinctually for everybody. And he's got the athleticism to be at least fine out there. And it is left field. It's not like he's playing a premium defensive position that they're trying to train him at. It's just left field. He's got plenty of speed, plenty of ability to do that. And he also hits like an absolute maniac. I hope he's ready to do that at the big league level from day one. But if he's not, at least the Rangers do have a few options behind him if he needs a little bit of time in the minor leagues to get ready to help this team go back-to-back as champions. Coming up, we'll look at the next 4 questions that the Rangers have to answer this spring training, including a little bit about the young bullpen and can they step up. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Just the other day, I bought tickets last minute to a Mavs versus Suns game, and even though the Mavs did win, I feel like I won because of my amazing tickets from Game Time. It was so easy to get these tickets. I was just sitting there waiting. I thought, you know what? I kind of like to go to a Mavs game tonight. Just checked out the deals they had, and they had a great price on tickets. Had a great time, even though the Mavs didn't win. It was still an absolutely fantastic time. And you can do that for any of the different kind of things you want to go. You want to go check out a Mavs game. You want to go check out a Stars game. If you want to look later on at a Rangers game, Game Time has got all the best deals on all the best tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back and doing my first version 1 of the opening day roster projection, looking at what this roster will look like on opening day. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very excited. A lot of decisions to make for the Rangers. Now, speaking of decisions for the Rangers, I guess not really. That was a terrible transition. Anyway, number 2 question this Rangers team has to answer in spring training is, can this rotation get through spring training healthy? Now, the main question of last spring training was, can the Rangers rotation get to opening day fully healthy? And the answer was no. Alas, not quite fully healthy. They experienced a little bit of a setback from Jacob deGrom. Heading into the season, he wasn't fully healthy on opening day. Was set at about a 75-ish pitch count limit. Was able to make his opening day start, which was a lot of fun and exciting and weird, and how fun that opening day was. But it felt like every single day it was just, let's see what's going on with Jacob deGrom's elbow, or I can't even remember what exactly it was at the beginning of last year. It feels like it's always something new. But now the Rangers know that Jacob deGrom is not going to be healthy for opening day. We are tabling those discussions and worries for another day. He's looking good in his recovery, but again, it's an August target date for when he comes back, so not too much concern there. We already know that Max Scherzer is not going to be ready for opening day. He's going to be back hopefully sometime in June. That's fine. Mahle back sometime in July. But then the question turns to everybody else in this rotation. They are now a little bit older, I guess a year older than last year. Nate Eovaldi is going into his age 34 season. Andrew Heaney is going into his age 33 season. John Gray is going to be 32 this year. Dane Dunning's still young at 29. He'll be fine. But there are questions about guys who have had injury concerns in the past in their career, in Heaney and Eovaldi and Gray. Gray has been pretty consistent for the Rangers during his time here. But Eovaldi, getting him healthy for opening day, I mean, it feels like a lot of the Rangers' playoff hopes just completely rest on Nate Eovaldi's health during the first half. If they have an injury to, Andrew Heaney, or Lord forbid something happens to Cody Bradford in the first half, it's not as devastating as losing the guy who's going to be your number one for the vast majority of this season, if not the entirety of the season, depending on how healthy Jacob deGrom is when he comes back, if he comes back, what time he comes back, all of those factors. Nate Eovaldi is your ace for the vast majority of this season, and there was a lot of workload put on him in the first half last year, and it took its toll, especially at midseason. Still don't know why he started the All-Star game. That feels like a very foolish decision at the time, and definitely in hindsight with him getting injured 2 weeks later. But the health of Nathan Eovaldi and Heaney and Gray and Dunning and also Cody Bradford, all of those guys need to make it to opening day healthy. Like, we just cannot have any setbacks at all. I'm just hoping for just no news is good news consistently, because we have already, it's day 2 or whatever of spring training, and there's already news out of Orioles camp that Kyle Bradish, who was amazing last year, he is hitting the injured list with a I believe it was a a sprain in his UCL tear, or UCL, not a tear. So not Tommy John surgery, but still, I feel like this happens every year. There's always some kind of injury to pitchers in spring training, just always. And maybe the Rangers got their bad injury news out of the way by, signing a guy who was already coming off of Tommy John surgery, already knowing that their actual ace in Jacob deGrom is not going to be back for most of the season. And they also got the bad news of the surgery for Max Scherzer's herniated disc in the offseason. So maybe they can go through spring training and not have any starting pitcher injuries. That is the hope. That is the goal. That is the prayer for all Rangers fans during the entire first half of the season, and especially in spring training. Just make it to opening day healthy. Make it to opening day ready to throw every fifth game, ready to throw about 100 pitches. If it's a little bit less than that, and we get there and everything's fine, no drama, and Nate Eovaldi is throwing 80 pitches on opening day, fine. But just no news is good news. Please, everyone's elbows and shoulders and UCLs and all of that good stuff, just stay intact, or at least be fully intact by the time we hit opening day. Because I've had enough with pitcher injuries, and I don't think that I can take one more. Number 3 question this Rangers team has to answer in spring training. I think they've already got their answer, but they need a definite answer, is who is the closer? My answer is going to be Jose Leclerc until it's proven otherwise. And there's been a lot of doubt about Jose Leclerc. There's been a lot of doubt about him heading into the postseason as the Rangers closer. I feel like there's still some doubt about how good he actually is after that postseason run. And granted, that was a small-ish sample size. It was about a month to 5 weeks. But for the last couple years, and honestly for the majority of his career, Jose Leclerc has been really freaking good. I don't understand why Fangraphs' projections, who said that the Rangers bullpen is shaky at best, have they not seen what Jose Leclerc was doing? Have they not seen the numbers that he's putting up? I mean, it's not like this guy was just throwing in a bunch of low-leverage situations and racking up innings when there was absolutely nothing on the line. I mean, he was doing it in the postseason and even during the regular season. He was incredibly good. He was incredibly good even in difficult situations. In safe situations, he had a 3.21 ERA. I mean, for the season, he had a sub-3 ERA. For the last couple years, he's had a sub-3 ERA, a 2.68 ERA this year in 57 innings, also 67 strikeouts. He's averaging more than 10 strikeouts per 9 the last couple years. Actually, for his entire career, he's only had one season where he had less than 10.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. And that was his rookie year when he pitched in 12 games. And he had a sub-2 ERA that year. The guy's been a strikeout machine. He has been better at, laying off the walks. He is, he's very hard to square up. He's getting a lot of swings and misses. He was the top 4% of baseball in swing and miss rate. He's in the top 6% of baseball last year in the average exit velocity. The expected ERA, the expected batting average, all of those were, in the top 10 or top 2% of baseball last year. He was just incredibly good. And I feel like he's not getting the respect he deserves as one of this game's elite closers, because that's what he is. He is an elite closer. Now, it might have taken him going nuclear on a national stage to help the Rangers win a World Series and pitching in what felt like every single game to show people that this is really who Jose Leclerc is. But those of us who have watched him for several years know that this guy has got incredible stuff. He's got ridiculous stuff, and he can be one of the best closers in the game. And for the last couple of years, he's been very consistent in doing so, and he just showed that he can do it on the biggest stage. I don't see any reason why he should be dethroned as the Rangers closer, whether it's from Josh Sborz finding consistency or whether it's from signing David Robertson or if the Rangers just want to go with Kirby Yates for some reason. I don't know. But I don't think that Jose Leclerc is going to lose that closing job this year. And I'd be very surprised. He'd have to have a honestly, truly horrendous year this year for the Rangers to not try and bring him back and make him their closer for a long, long time. This guy is so good, and he absolutely deserves all the respect in the world. And it's not just because of a 1 month stretch. This guy has been darn good for years. And it's about freaking time people start understanding that. Coming up, we're going to look at the last couple of questions the Rangers need to answer this spring training, including, where's Leody Taveras going to play next year? Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. FanDuel's got all kinds of different odds, especially on Major League Baseball. They've got odds for American League Rookie of the Year, and I'm sure you can guess who is the betting favorite to win American League Rookie of the Year. That's right, it is Evan Carter at plus 280. Then in second place, it's Jackson Holliday of the Orioles. Then third place, of course, Wyatt Langford at plus 750. They also have a couple other Rangers on there. If you're feeling really bold, Antoine Kelly at plus 5,000. Or if you're feeling incredibly bold, they also have odds on Jack Leiter at plus 20,000. That is a wild bet if you're wanting to make it. But if you're wanting to go check it out, or you want to put some money on Wyatt Langford, you're believing in the Wyatt Langford experiment that he is going to be an absolute stud his rookie year and win AL Rookie of the Year, head to FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Now, the fourth question the Rangers must answer in spring training is who's going to play center field for the Rangers? There are a few options for Texas. Obviously, Leody Taveras is the incumbent. He played 143 games for the Rangers last year. I don't think he played any games outside of DH and center field. I'm pretty sure almost all of his games were in center field. But there's this new kid, Evan Carter, who you might have heard of. He also plays a pretty darn good center field. And the question between those two is who's going to play center field more? Obviously, we saw it down the stretch, and in the playoffs, Leody Taveras was the Rangers center fielder. There was not much of a doubt about that. He was going to play every single day. Righties, lefties didn't matter, and he was going to play center field. But I don't know if that's the best choice in 2024. There are a few things that Leody Taveras can do better than Evan Carter. I think his raw power is a little bit better. He's obviously a switch hitter, which Evan Carter is not. His arm is a lot better. And he's made more of the spectacular plays than Evan Carter. Now, Carter did have that spectacular play in Houston up against that wall in his first game in Houston against the Garage to double off Jose Altuve, which I know we will all be enjoying. Every time a ball gets hit into that corner in left field in Houston, we're all going to think of that play and smile a little bit every single time we're watching a game against the Rangers, against the Astros in Houston, which the Rangers have dominated there. I believe it's a 5-game active winning streak in Houston. We'll see if they extend that during this regular season. But I think that overall, Leody Taveras does get dinged in my book for his defense because of some of the inconsistencies. He makes the spectacular plays. He does have, great speed. He doesn't always get the best reads, and he can be a little bit inconsistent in how often he is making those great plays. But the thing about Evan Carter that I really like about his defense and why I think he should be playing every day in center field is that he's consistent. You know exactly what you're getting with him. He doesn't make that many bad reads or bad jumps. He is just going to make plays look a lot easier than they should be. He's also a little bit faster than Leody Taveras. His arm isn't anything crazy cannon-like like Leody Taveras is, and I love watching a center fielder with an absolute cannon for an arm. That's why I liked watching Leonys Martin play center field. I love watching outfield assists just in general, and I don't think Evan Carter's going to have all that many, especially compared to Leody Taveras. But I think the consistency in center field and just a little bit more speed should give Evan Carter the edge in center field. Now, a lot of, actually, I'd say the vast majority of the value of Leody Taveras, who is a very good player. He was a 2.5 win player last year as a 24-year-old. Everyday center fielder, switch hitter, with some pop, play some decent defense, swipe some bags. That's a hard player to develop, and a type of player the Rangers have not developed in a long time. Just developing an at least average first division starter, that was a starter in center field on a team that won a championship. He is a first division starter. And he was pretty solid last year. But if Wyatt Langford is also in this lineup and can play a decent left field, which I think he might end up being able to do, he's going to have a little bit more value than Leody Taveras. So the question would then become, okay, well, if Evan Carter's playing every day in center field, then that kind of moves Leo Taveras down the pecking order just a little bit. And if you put Wyatt Langford out there in left field, then is it better for your team if you have Justin Foscue as your DH? So you have Evan Carter in center field, and then you have Wyatt in left, and then you have Foscue at DH. Is that better than Leo Taveras in center field, Evan Carter in left field, and Wyatt Langford at DH? Or swap Evan Carter and Leote and put Leote in left field and Wyatt Langford at DH. That's the kind of questions the Rangers will be answering this season. I'm not exactly sure what the best configuration of that looks like. I just think that the consistency and that little bit of an edge in speed, if I think the ceiling for Leo Taveras' defense, I think it's a little bit higher than Langford's because he is able to make some of those more athletic plays than I've seen Evan Carter make, because he does have that. It's not just a plus arm. It is a double plus arm. It is one of the best arms in baseball. And not that Evan Carter's arm is bad. It's kind of average, which is fine. Usually you don't need it. It's not a necessity for having a cannon for an arm and playing center field. It is a luxury. I think that the defensive ceiling of Leo Taveras is a little bit higher than Evan Carter's, but if he's not going to get to that ceiling, that kind of leads questions to how much is Leo Taveras going to play? Is it going to be every day, or is it going to be Evan Carter out there every day in center field? I think that might end up being the case, and you might see Leo Taveras a little bit more in left field this year, but I'm not Bruce Bochy. I'm not the one making those decisions, and I think the Rangers already have a little bit of a feel for what they're going to do with that, but I think we might see a little bit of a switch up from what we saw every day in the postseason last year. Now, the fifth and final question the Rangers must answer in spring training is which young reliever is going to step up? Because the Rangers did sign a couple of relievers that are, pretty decent. David Robertson, solid signing. Kirby Yates, solid signing. But the guys who they had last year were, for the most part, especially during the regular season, outside of like a couple months of Will Smith, outside of a few months from Josh Boers, outside of, honestly, most of the season from Jose Leclerc, just kind of under the radar, most of that pen was an absolute abject disaster for the vast majority of last year. And I think just bouncing back to the mean, bouncing back to the average of what these players, I think, actually are, this pen is going to improve so significantly much from where they were last year. And I think they're going to get some help from some youngsters on the farm. I think Antoine Kelly is my bet for the guy who is going to step up the most and pitch the most in high leverage situations of these youngsters that either haven't quite cracked the big leagues yet or have just barely gotten a taste. I don't think that Grant Anderson is going to get the 57 innings that Fangraphs is projecting him to throw this year. I love Grant Anderson, and he is a World Series champion. He's getting a ring, and he really stepped up and helped the Rangers in a time where they just needed anything in their bullpen. And man, that major league debut in Detroit was so incredibly fun. Like that was one of the better major league debuts I've ever seen, was Grant Anderson's. But I think the Rangers need some other guys, some other youngsters to step up and, step up in this pen and actually contribute, and maybe even contribute in high leverage situations. They're going to need more consistency from Josh Boers. I think they'll get it. They're going to need a little bit more consistency from Leclerc. I think they'll definitely get that. I think they feel really good about what they're going to get from Robertson and Yates. I feel like that's pretty predictable of what those guys are going to bring in their veteran presence. There's not going to be a whole lot of ups and downs, I think, with them. I'm hoping. Granted, they are on the older side, so at any moment they could just fall off a cliff and Father Time could claim them. But I'm really excited about some of these young guys, about seeing what, Owen White could look like in the bullpen. Maybe the Rangers are going to have to, use him for some of those starter innings. If they, God forbid, do have a starting pitcher injury in the first half, Owen White's going to be one of those first names called. But I'm excited to see what Mark Church can look like in a big league pen. If he can kind of hone down those walk issues. His slider is absolutely filthy, absolutely disgusting. And I'm looking forward to seeing it in the Rangers big league pen this year. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of Antoine Kelly, maybe a little bit of Carson Coleman. We'll see how quickly he recovers. He's the Rangers' Rule 5 pick from the Yankees. He is still recovering from Tommy John surgery, so he's not going to be healthy to start the season. But I'm excited to see what he looks like. And if Jonathan Hernandez can bounce back from a abject, awful 2023, the stuff is still really nasty. He was still getting a lot of ground balls. Can he stay in the strike zone and not have a walk-off walk in extra innings this year? I'm hoping that he can avoid that. Of just one of the worst. I'd say the worst outing from any reliever this year on the Rangers was the extra innings walk-off walk in Minnesota from Jonathan Hernandez. He's still got incredible stuff. I still believe in him as a back-end reliever, but the Rangers are going to need that from him. They're going to need a lot of these guys to step up. They're going to need, hopefully, Yeri Rodriguez to find some consistency. Obviously, he's got a lot of premium velo, premium gas. Can he step up and be consistent? That has been the question for him for years. Or is it time to move on? I don't think it's just yet, but the Rangers will find out the answer to that question probably pretty quickly during the season. There's a lot of guys with some promise that could step up in the back end of this bullpen, and I'm excited to see who does it and if someone does it, because please, it's about time for someone to step up in this bullpen. It has been a rough couple of years, and that month-long stretch in October may have been all of the magic goodness that was supposed to be doled out throughout the last couple of seasons from relievers. But hey, I'd like a little bit of that magic improvement during the regular season for this bullpen in 2024. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.